shared that news and how painful it was.
Yeah, but the one thing I took out of that piece was, man, I think most white people and black people are great people. I really believe that in my heart. But I think our system is set up where our politicians, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, are designed to make us not like each other so they can keep their grasp of money and power. They divide and conquer. I truly believe in my heart most white people and black people are awesome people, but we're so stupid following our politicians, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. And their only job is, hey, let's make these people not like each other. We don't live in their neighborhoods. We're all got money. Let's make the whites and blacks not like each other. Let's make rich people and poor people not like each other. Let's scramble the middle class. I truly believe that in my heart.
I used to watch Phoenix Suns games in the early 90s when I was in high school because my sister was a big Phoenix Suns basketball fan. And interestingly enough, she was able to pretty accurately predict the outcome of a game as soon as the referees were announced. Because she had studied their names and she knew which ones were biased towards the Phoenix Suns, and perhaps they were the ones who were paid off, I guess. Interesting. It's a matter of pattern recognition, and that was what she had obsessed over, so that's what she was good at. And if there were at least two referees that were really, against the Phoenix Suns, then most likely the Phoenix Suns were doomed to lose. So anyhow, at that time, Charles Barkley was one of the star players of the team. So, I am somewhat familiar with Charles Barkley as a result. And I really don't pay attention to basketball. I have not at all since I used to watch it with my sister. And after she moved out, I just lost interest, I guess. And I just did it just to kind of bond with my sister. But anyhow, after hearing what Charles Barkley just said, that how he believes that blacks and whites are essentially good people, but it's politicians on the right and the left that put these groups against each other for their own gain, it really gave me a lot of more appreciation for him. I have to say this is a rather profound observation. So of course I really dislike the term woke because it has been appropriated by rather ignorant, angry people who insist that somehow being awake means repeating the forced narrative talking points they get from their TV sets. It's stupid. What happens when 90% of the media is controlled and owned by 6 corporations? What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? The very people who claim to be woke believe that the way to fight racism is by being racist themselves, denigrating an entire group of people based on their ethnicity and holding them responsible for evils committed by a rather small percentage of people hundreds of years ago. That is not being anti-racist. But judging people by the color of their skin and not by the content of their character is now considered progressive and liberal. So I'm a child of the 80s, and one of my favorite sitcoms when I was a kid was Different Strokes. The show was about a wealthy man who adopted 2 black boys, and they live with him and his daughter in a penthouse, and I think it's in New York, I guess. This TV show illustrated how propaganda can be used for good. I recently read the book Hollywood Propaganda by Mark Dice, and he mentions how Different Strokes was a positive propaganda TV show which promoted racial harmony at the time. But unfortunately, the liberal crowd today finds fault with the show and claims that it is somehow racist because reasons. As a child, I liked the show, and all I needed to relate to little Arnold was that he had a Kenner Millennium Falcon toy on the shelf of his room, and I got excited to see it every time. Nowadays, though, the liberal train wreck ideology of social justice would probably tell white kids to have Han Solo piloting the Millennium Falcon, while telling black kids to have Lando Calrissian piloting the Falcon. Maybe they would consider that a cultural appropriation to do otherwise, I guess, but normal people wouldn't even know if they were being serious or not at first when they say stuff like this. When we were children in the 80s, we never thought about such things, because the mentality, that mentality is just sick and completely absurd. So why is that sort of thing being pushed these days? Well, enter the Hegelian Dialectic. Alright, so I took a philosophy class in college, and I remember studying Hegel, and there's no way I can profess to be an expert in philosophy, so don't worry, I will put this into the simplest of terms as I understand this concept. Simply put, the Hegelian dialectic is the thesis, antithesis, synthesis pattern, or in other words, the problem, reaction, solution model. It comprises three dialectical stages of development: a thesis, giving rise to its reaction; an antithesis, which contradicts or negates the thesis; and the tension between the two being resolved by a means of synthesis. In more simplistic terms, one can consider it thus: problem, reaction, solution. Karl Marx had his own version of the Hegelian dialectic, and this is called the Marxist dialectic. His version revolves around, you guessed it, droning on about materialism and class struggle. I bet you're getting bored by now and you're thinking, come on, man, what's this got to do with Charles Barkley? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Instead of a straightforward process of reacting to a problem and creating a solution, the Hegelian dialectic can be weaponized, particularly through propaganda. The way this is weaponized is that the process can be used backwards by the powers that be by creating a problem which would lead people to react a certain way, thus shepherding them to the predetermined solution they already have in mind. Does this sound far-fetched? Really, it's not. Let's see how the Hegelian dialectic can be used to pit people against each other. So, in Return of the Jedi, Emperor Palpatine wanted Luke Skywalker to turn to the dark side and replace Darth Vader as his servant. That was the solution he desired. And he knew that if he could push Luke towards the, cross that line for, revenge and hatred, that that would be the path down the dark side, in which he would not be able to go back. That was not the solution that Luke wanted, right? He did not want any part of that. So the Emperor provoked him to violence through the sense of urgency of the rebellion walking into a trap. Then a fight ensues. Or take the Star Wars prequels as another example. Yes, the movies were stupid and the character motivations were not thought out properly, but there is a clever part to this. To rise in political power, Palpatine had to create a problem. He manipulated a greedy paramilitary force to attack his homeworld. Problem. In order to garner sympathy votes. Reaction. To name him Supreme Chancellor. Solution. Once he gained that position, Palpatine's next step was to become a totalitarian dictator, but he could not just achieve this through the normal political process. So he created a problem, the Separatists, which threatened a galactic civil war. This funneled the politicians into a reaction, in this case voting for emergency powers, which he could then hold indefinitely. So, do you understand how this works yet? Repeat the problem, reaction, solution process as often as necessary to get what you want. Now, let's turn back to what Charles Barkley said about how the racial tensions are stirred for the benefit of the politicians. He is spot on, but it goes even deeper than just politicians. President Trump was completely right when he said that the corporate media is the enemy of the people. Not only does the media dox citizens and intimidate them for dissenting to their narratives, but every day the media stirs bigotry and resentment. From TV shows to movies to music to even product commercials, their goal is to push the idea that all whites are racist and are behind all hate crimes. Time after time, they always jump the gun, and these fools in the media, they end up stepping on rakes. Oh, the shooter is a white man. Oh, oops, it turns out he's Middle Eastern. Oh, but somehow whites are still to blame. Now here comes the Stop Asian Hate narrative. Well then, let's investigate who is behind the majority of crimes against Asians. It must be those horrible white people. Oh my, whoops, it's predominantly blacks. Oh gee. How do they not see that coming? Just recently, an undercover journalist with Project Veritas had caught a CNN director openly admitting the goal of propagandizing this racism against Asians was to vilify white people and paint them as racists. But when it turned out that blacks are more to blame, it shot a hole in their narrative. Hey, I have an idea. How about if the news media would simply present facts rather than presenting narratives? Then there would be no need for theorizing, and they wouldn't be such villains. But instead they spin fake narratives like hands up, don't shoot, to work people up into a frenzy. The media couldn't care less of the perpetual black-on-black bloodbath in places like Chicago. But when a police officer shoots a violent black guy while he's attacking police and resisting arrest, then they spin their narrative of systemic racism and cities burn. Black Lives Matter, they say, but they don't care how many black-owned businesses are destroyed or how many black people get killed in the process. Black Lives Matter, except for Officer David Dorn's life. His death didn't matter to them. If they are so concerned about systemic racism, why don't they discuss this systemic racism in the education system that treats black kids with kids' gloves by continually lowering expectations? How about this systemic racism in welfare that incentivizes black mothers to keep their children's father out of the home? Or the systemic racism in the record label companies that profit from glamorizing the thug life and inspires blacks to land themselves in jail? If Democrats really care about ending systemic racism, why don't they discuss who was responsible for the '93 crime bill and who was profiting from the private prison system? People are being manipulated, but actually the ones who make the best arguments against all of this are people like Candace Owens, Larry Elder, or Anthony Bryan Logan. Not surprisingly, these people are demonized by the media. Black voices must be heard, except for these black people. Nah, screw them. We don't want to listen to them. They don't toe the line of our narrative. They don't say what we want them to say. So upon recognizing this manufactured problem, one could say, they're out to destroy us for their personal gain. Well, who is they? Charles Barkley says it's the politicians. Well, he's right, but it goes deeper than that. Look higher on the pyramid of power at the groups these politicians belong to. Look at the Council on Foreign Relations, the globalist think tank, which promotes one world government and has had high-profile members like David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, and several U.S. presidents. Look at the Trilateral Commission, founded by David Rockefeller and war criminal Zbigniew Brzezinski. Yes, he's the father of Mika Brzezinski from the Morning Joe show, married to Joe Scarborough, the crappy former Republican congressman who had an intern who turned up dead in his office when he supposedly wasn't there. Oh, gee, officer, I don't know how my intern just died. She just hit her head on the desk. Oh my gosh, she just flops over all the time. What was she doing there when I wasn't there? I don't know. Gee, I don't know. It's a good thing that the coroner was an associate of his, huh? So yeah, Zbigniew Brzezinski, he was the man responsible for the Khmer Rouge, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and other murderous groups. Look at the Tavistock Institute, involved with evil social engineering. Look at the Bilderberg Group, in which global elites gather to discuss their plans for the world. Then look at those who fund groups like this: the Rockefeller Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, George Soros's Open Society Foundation, and so on. You can see the pyramid's getting smaller and smaller at the top here, right? I'm not being comprehensive at all, but I'm just giving a few examples and showing how they are interrelated with each other. This would be stuff for you to research on your own, okay? But it's groups like these, along with the international banking cartels, that form the establishment. These groups manipulate people with social engineered distractions, and useful idiot groups like Antifa and BLM do their bidding, all while claiming to fight the establishment. They don't even realize that the establishment endorses them wholeheartedly. Throw a brick through a Starbucks window? Well, don't worry. Starbucks virtue signals your cause, and the police stand back and let you do it. Ooh, so brave. Wow, you're really resisting the system, aren't you? Hold on. This is an opportunity to use the word anti-disestablishmentarianism in a sentence and have it make sense, isn't it? Let me think. Yeah, I'm too lazy. So, it's obvious to me that the desired end result is the eradication of civil liberties. So they created a problem prompting violence among blacks, the expected reaction to which is societal destabilization. From music to movies to even TV commercials, the message is, all police are racist and out to kill you. White people hate you and oppress you. They want to convince blacks that the police are their enemy, and if they get pulled over for whatever reason, they have no choice but to fight for their lives. Oh my. Because, police have nothing better to do than to kill people, I guess. So they encourage them to resist arrest, and the gullible ones fall for this crap. Congratulations, assholes. This sort of rhetoric leads to more blacks getting shot by the police. But that's really what they want, despite what they claim. They are using blacks as fodder in order to destroy the police system. The reaction they want is for whites to get sick of the violence and looting, leading them to hate blacks and begin white-on-black crimes, thus justifying their narrative, using the N-word or calling them joggers or whatever. They want to provoke that sort of reaction from people. They want racial chaos. Fortunately, it's not working so far, despite the claims that the USA is a deeply racist country. So they continue to push it further, to the point where you see white people on TV complaining about how evil white people are. It's like, seriously? Or that black professor in New York, I think he was in New York, he said he was going to kill his white friends when the time comes. These people aren't just being stupid, alright? They say crap like this on purpose. Now, the Overton window is basically the range of socially accepted political speech. But now they have gone far beyond pushing the Overton window to the left, the far left. They've practically smashed the Overton window with a brick, and they've tossed a Molotov cocktail through it. They're saying crap like this to get a reaction out of people and to make people hate each other. These people speak evil into existence like curses. They want societal strife. That way they will have their chaos, and then they have their ready-made solution, which is to step in and say that everyone will have to relinquish their rights in order to maintain order. They use people as fodder and crucify police officers in order to destroy the police. Of course, there are bad police officers, but there's quite many police officers, and they want people to believe that they're all bad and they're all racist. So defund the police, they demand. Dismantle the police, they say. They claim to oppose Nazis, yet defunding and dismantling the police is exactly what Hitler did. He had his brown shirts run amok, rioting, burning, and murdering people so that he could eliminate political opponents. Hitler's solution was the Nazified, militarized replacement of the police system. Don't believe me? This is coming directly from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. Quote, and I'm reading off their webpage here, beginning in 1933, the Nazis took control of and subsequently transformed the police forces of the Weimar Republic into instruments of state repression and, eventually, of genocide. They did so by Nazifying policing. The new government removed anti-Nazi police leaders, reorganized Germany's police forces, and reoriented the police culture towards Nazism. They changed the structure of the police to align it with Nazi ideals. They then expanded political power and used the police to target people they considered their political, racial, social, and criminal opponents. Now, looking at the situation today, many police are quitting their jobs for fear of becoming the next target of the media that pushes the idea that police have nothing better to do than to kill black people. Stop Asian hate! Well, what if dispatch says the perpetrator is a violent black man who is attacking an Asian? Or a black woman too, actually. That's also come up. If that's the case, will the police be reluctant to get involved? Are they going to rush to the crime scene? Lest their careers be destroyed by the media that wishes to crucify them to stoke a narrative if it comes to the point where they have to pull a gun and shoot the person for resisting arrest? Yes, Charles Barkley is correct about the politicians, but it's also the media that drives the social division with their narrative. They want racism because it boosts their ratings. Yes, CNN and MSNBC are bad, but so is Fox News. The corporate media system cannot be trusted. They want you divided. Divided by religion, divided by sex, divided by political affiliation, divided by class. When you are divided and angry and controlled, you target those different from you, not those responsible. The controllers, in other words. Divided, you are weak. Divided, you pose no threat to their control. Just like the emperor, they try to provoke violence for their own gain. It's a trap! People become trapped by the Hegelian dialectic, and the only way to break free of it is to refuse to participate. Be like Charles Barkley. Be like Luke Skywalker. Realize that your emotions are being manipulated and do not give in to hate. Hate leads to the dark side. We've got to be like Luke Skywalker and toss aside the lightsaber and refuse to be controlled. The Emperor was not defeated until Luke tossed his lightsaber aside. Then the Emperor's system collapsed on itself. Take yourself out of the equation and the power structure fails. Once you step outside of the Hegelian dialectic, it's so much easier to see how people are herded into anticipated reactions by allowing their emotions to be manipulated. Their foregone conclusions won't work if enough people take themselves out of the equation.